Welcome everybody to the Muffin Madrina moment. How are you this evening? I'm the Muffin Madrina, and I'm excited because we have a special guest here tonight. So if you're just joining us, we're giving you a few minutes to join, gather around with some friends, grab a cup of coffee or tea, whatever little dessert you want to have at this time at 8 o'clock at night if you haven't had your dessert. And make sure that you share, that you hit like, and also make comments so that way we know that you're there. Okay. Now, tonight at the Muffin Madrina moment, it's a very special night as well. I feel that all my Muffin Madrina moments are special just because I get to connect with different people that I know throughout my life, my journey of life. And tonight it's special because our guest, Amy Martinez, she actually grew up with me back home in our church. And the interesting thing is that she's actually 6 years younger than I. And I remember also being with her sister, Gloria Pinky, right?
Yep.
And we used to do a lot of things together for the praise and worship team. And the reason why I wanted to have Amy to come along today is because I wanted her to share her story as far as what she went through as a young person, growing up in the church, then going off to college. And she has a lot of transitions of path. And tonight's topic is a mom's journey. And as a mom, both of us are moms, and I know that some of you out in the audience are mom. Hi, Pinky. Thank you for sending us a shout out. And hearts, we heart you back. Thank you for supporting. And basically, one of the things that sometimes as moms, we go through a lot of different decisions and paths. But before we became moms, we were either, young folks, we were children. And so I'm going to give Amy the opportunity to share with us tonight a little bit about her story. And I'll be asking her a couple questions here and there as well. Now, Amy, so you're an 80s baby, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes.
Yes. And
Bringing it back.
Bringing it all the way back. I believe when you were born, I was like in first grade.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so basically you growing up in the 80s, it was probably a different transition for you. And so if you just want to tell us a little bit about, when you were born and as far as like when you were young, how was that for you?
How can I explain my childhood? Well, my childhood was fun. It's like we're kind of, Holyoke, Massachusetts, not exactly, the most luxurious place in the world. But if there was something, it was fun. And my parents always tried to like make sure we had that. It didn't matter. We probably weren't raised in like the best neighborhood in town, but we would never know that because our parents always kind of established a place for us to feel safe, for us to feel that we could go outside and have fun and play and just kind of have that childhood that really every child should have, no matter where they come from.
Yeah.
So I think that is like one of the things that I was really blessed with is, to have parents that really made the space for us to be kids. I mean, we had to be tough. We had to be careful.
Yeah.
We had to, kind of be on the defense from a young age because it was just kind of like the community and the atmosphere where inside my house, but where we lived.
Yeah.
And but still have that time, and especially more with Pinky. Jennifer came a few years after us.
I remember that. I remember going back to what you just described, growing up, where we grew up in Holyoke, Massachusetts, you wouldn't know, I actually grew up in the Jackson Parkway, housing projects.
Yeah.
But, my parents were working parents, but I never knew that, we were part of the percentage considered low income,
Right. right.
or anything like that until later on. You start hearing things and you grow older and you go to college and they start telling you all the statistics about
Yeah,
Holyoke and blah blah blah. And so, but then you realize there's a rich story behind it because we all
yeah,
grew up in Holyoke and we learn certain things from our environments. And yes, it's true what you said. Our parents, they did the best that they could and they did and what at that time. And I know they protected us and created a kind of haven for us to be able to be young women that are, have achieved a lot of things now. So tell me a little bit more as that has progressed for you, growing up when you're small and then, middle school and things like that.
so I think one of the things that really got me in trouble a lot was my mouth.
Really?
I
Are you sure about that?
oh, everyone will agree with that. And I think part of that is, like I said, and we've lived it. You have to be tough, especially where we were raised, where we grew up. Even though we had that freedom, and I think we had more creativity in the time.
Yeah.
But you still had to kind of be tough. You have to be on the defense, and you had to really protect yourself because it wasn't like it is today. You had to walk. Like I had to walk from Elm Street all the way up to Peck by myself,
Oh yeah.
at what, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Mhm.
So you had to be protective of yourself. And, that's one thing my parents taught me is, always stand up for yourself. And I think one of the main things that they taught me was stand up for what is right. And if you feel that something is not right, then you should speak up about it. And I think that got me in a lot of trouble because I think maybe I feel now that I look back on it, maybe I
Yeah.
was too progressive at the time. Maybe my ideologies of the time were more advanced. And I think, a lot of it had to do also with the structure of the church and growing up in church, which I love. And, I'm still in there today. And I know we'll get to that probably a little later on. But, it was that discipline and the respect for authority, respect for those, figures that are in authority, and just always having kind of like that internal conflict of, okay, I don't think this is right, but
Mhm.
I have to respect, and but I don't know how to say it in a respectful manner. And
Yeah.
I think people always kind of misunderstood me a lot of times and my character,
Mhm.
and probably took it as a kid that was like rebellious, or a kid that was
Mhm.
horrible, or a kid that behaved horribly. And that really was hard for me growing up. And it was always like a battle,
Yeah.
especially going to school,
Mhm.
because in school and that time, it's like there was no mercy. It was, kill or be killed type of thing. I mean, today there's like a lot of boundaries and a lot of things set
Exactly.
up to protect kids and all that stuff from school, which is great, but we really didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
So you had to have a certain character if you were going to make it through middle school and high school.
Yeah, it's true.
um,
Some, societal changes, they throughout the years, things different become different.
mhm,
Just the upbringing, what used to be good or what was bad, things have changed differently now. And it becomes a challenge, because, as moms, we've learned certain things that we still try to carry through with our children. But then at the same time, we understand, what were those things that, well, when I become a parent, I'll make sure that I may not do that,
right,
So I can
right.
imagine that. So can you tell me a little bit about, you're transitioning out of middle school, you're going into high school and going into college. Like, what was it that you dealt with and trying to plan, going off to college and things like that?
um, one one of the things that I really, really, really had a hard time with, growing up, elementary, middle school, high school, I had major self-esteem issues. I wasn't exactly the biggest looker. I know that, and I can claim it, and I will own it. And a lot of and a lot of it had to do with the legality of that time. I guess we could put it, like, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, you can't put this, you can't put that. And following that really didn't help me anymore. anymore when I really needed it. And I really battled with kind of, I think those were very much my internalized demons. And it kind of got to a point where, like, at one point I really hated myself. I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. I hated everything, and then, on top of that, I felt people didn't understand me. A lot of people don't know, when I was in high school, that I was working since my sophomore year. A lot of people don't know that, I would work my junior year and then go to praise and worship rehearsal right after that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know I had straight A's in high school. A lot of people don't know that I made my weekly visits to the local library because I love to read, and, engaged in community service. So a lot of people don't know a lot of things about me, because I chose not to share it, because at the time I was so I was so afraid of what people thought, and I was so consumed by how I thought people saw me, or like how what people said about me. And even with my singing, it was really hard, because I felt like people just didn't understand my style, or people didn't understand what I was trying to do.
I remember those times.
Right?
Why is Amy going this way?
and I was learning, this is, my vocals and my songs and my style. Those were things that I was learning since I was a little girl, pretty much on our own. And me and Pinky would come, and then, we would be practicing all night. And I think we drove our dad crazy, because sometimes we were rehearsing till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know how my parents dealt with it, but they did. And then, a college came, and I kind of took a step back from church. And I have to say that was probably one of the worst choices I ever made in my life.
It's good that you're sharing that, because someone just posted for us on the chat, from a local pastor that we know, talking about paths. And I just want to share it with you really quick before you get onto that. It's in Spanish, so I know you're good in quickly translating. It says, los caminos en la vida son tan buenos que te permiten conocer personas que no solo son hermanos en Cristo, sino que se convierten en parte de tu familia. Gracias, Pastor Noé. I'm trying to see, it talks about that paths in your life are so good that they allow you to know people that not only become your brothers in Christ, but they convert as part of your family. And I think that's true. There are certain peoples in our path that, even though we know them, they become family towards you. And that's very important.
And I came to understand that later on in my life. I went to college. I went to the University of Massachusetts, and I knew what I wanted to study, and there were some program issues and things like that, which eventually had me dropping out of UMass, because, financial aid issues. We didn't really get any financial aid. Mostly we made too much money, which we all know, really. And, I didn't have the luxury to just keep taking college loans to figure out what I wanted to do. And, coming back home to Holyoke and not really being kind of in church and in that type of close relationship with God, and my brothers and sisters that I kind of left behind, to kind of find, I guess I was trying to find who I was. And I had so many internalized issues at that point. I mean, I graduated high school at the age of 17. I was really young going into college. I was very immature, very unknowing of the real world. And it was a slap in the face. It really was. And and it's no one to point fingers to, no one to blame, nothing, because at the end of the day, we need to take ownership for our own choices and for the decisions that we make. It just took me a long time to understand it until I became mom.
Got it.
And go ahead.
So yes, so if you are joining us right now, you've just joined the Muffin Madrina moment. Right now, we are speaking with Amy Martinez, a friend of the Muffin Madrina, who is I. So if this is your first time, and she's sharing with us her journey, growing up all the way until she became a mom, and how she took these different paths in her life, and how those the decisions that she made to the point where she's going to explain where she has reached. So let's go back to the part and where you transitioned out of college. You know, you mentioned about you stepped away from the faith. You were dealing with internal issues. You had self-esteem and some other things that were happening. You know, by you sharing that, I gotta be honest. I was a young. You were, if you were 17, technically I was like 21 and 22. And you know, I'm really sorry because I was in my world, and even though I crossed with you, like hearing you, I could have probably stepped in a little bit and been able to be like, hey, you're going off to college, because I got to go to college. You know, we were probably from some of the few that grew up the way we did, and had the opportunity, at least in, you know, in our circle of our
Mhm.
church, they got the opportunity to go off to a 4-year college. And yes, you do experience a lot of things that perhaps we were not prepared for, just because, you know, we were somewhat sheltered and
Mhm.
protected to a sense, which was good. But at the same time, we had roots of faith in us that actually let us carry us through, which you get to share. So go ahead with your part about the college and everything else.
Yeah. So leaving college, I did not know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what where to go. I didn't know much. So I came back, and coming back um was not exactly healthy for me, because I had already kind of experienced what it was, what I viewed as being free,
Or
being
independence.
free or independent and making my own choices and my own decisions and feeling like I'm an adult, but really making a lot of mistakes along the way. And those mistakes led me to having horrible relationships, being in abusive relationships, um, physically abusive, verbally abusive. And it really made me build a tough skin, almost to the point of losing myself, in the sense that, there's this little girl who grew up in this amazing family that I love and is super supportive, and always had this environment of safety and care, and, a little bit of tough skin, but still with a warm heart, and, who loved church and loved singing for God and learned how to play the guitar, and had all these amazing teachers along the way. I had this experience. I had Nancy, who taught me how to play guitarra. I had Israel, who taught me a few chords, and then I had Kevin Pagan, who taught me how to play with the electric guitar. And then, and then, I sung with a whole bunch of different people along the way. I mean, there's videos that your mom probably has of me just rolling up with the mic somewhere, and then here's this little, 13-year-old girl, maybe 12-year-olds, when Frankie first started the praise and worship group the first time.
Yeah, I
And
remember that. I
and we
remember
were,
doing the trial with Pinky. I think I
yeah,
slept over your house almost.
and there's 17, 18 years of this girl that, had all these experiences, had all these amazing people in her life, and who helped her to learn the way of the faith, and putting your talents and putting your abilities and what God gave you into that. And then all of a sudden, all of that is just shattered. It's just falling apart, because I wasn't strong enough to hold on to it. I wasn't um, structured enough in my awareness of my faith in
Mhm.
order to hold on to it when I was going through my own processes.
Mhm.
So that, unfortunately, and fortunately, I can't say unfortunately
Because
and
everything is a
fortunately,
lesson. It makes us grow.
yes, yes, it's all those things that make me who I am today, that allow me to be the mom that I am today, And that has taught me that I'm more capable than I thought I could ever be. So, you know, it's like I say all these things, and this is actually the first time that I even talk, and you know, I'm not even sharing like the deep, profound stuff.
Yes.
But and it's not, you know, it's not for people to feel bad for me or to feel. The reason I say this is because I know that there are youth today that I was in their shoes. I know that there's youth today, girls, little girls that have amazing dreams, that have goals, that have things that they want to achieve, that need to hear this because they need to know that they're not alone,
That is true. Yep.
that there's always a way
Yes.
if they're just
Definitely.
guided correctly.
Yes.
So, you know, for people who were there for me, for people who were with me in ministry when I was younger, for people who helped guide me along the way, this is not meant to be a guilt trip. I don't want anyone to feel sad for me or feel like, oh my goodness, I failed her. No, you did everything you should have done along the way. I had to learn. I had to learn. And
So,
that's where this process took me.
you know, I want to thank you because it takes guts. It takes to be to be audacious about the whole thing and be able to, you know, come into a forum here where, you know, a lot of folks that we know are probably connected with us. And thank you for connecting with the Muffin Madrina movement at this time. And please hit you know, share it, hit like, make comments. But you know, it takes a process for someone to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to open up, you know what, I'm going to talk and do the talk. Because like what you said, there are young ladies, young girls that right now may feel that they don't feel sufficient enough, or they don't like the way they look, or they have these dreams, but they may live in a household that they don't see themselves coming out of there. Like, how can I possibly do X, Y, and Z if my parents are this, or you know, or maybe they're with a single parent and they just don't see certain things happening for them. But yet we know that there are kids that do have things and have resources and have the parents that are there and everything. But this is definitely geared to those young ladies and kids out there that need this. And, you know, tell me a little bit, because I know in your transition, you became a mom. So can you tell me a little bit about how that happened? Well, you know, the process.
I can tell you how that happened. Yeah. I don't know if this is the right platform for that. But
It's PG.
PG. No, so this I had been waitressing. While when I came back, I started waitressing, and I met someone there, and it was another relationship I got into that wasn't the healthiest. It wasn't how can I say? I've always stayed. I've never spoken poorly of this person. I've never spoken horribly, and you know, and I'm not going to start now because I don't gain anything from it, and neither does he. It wasn't a healthy relationship. But you know, I became pregnant. I was pregnant at the age of 20, and he was born when I turned 21. And he was my world. You know, he was this little tiny little thing. He was only 4 pounds when he was born, so small. And you know, I looked at him, and you know, I was still in a relationship, but I knew I had to change my life. It was that moment that I said, I can't stay like this. I can't, there has to be more, you know. And it was one night that I was with my son. I was in the apartment, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I was like, God, like, I was born to serve you. I know that. I know that I may not show it to people, and you know, obviously there'll be people who criticize me. There's people who might say, you know, I made horrible choices at a young age. 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 are probably not my proudest moments. I'm not going to hide it. because anyone who says that they lived a perfect life is full of lies. That's the first lie. So I'm not trying to hide anything. I made a lot of mistakes. I said and I did things I should not have done. I went to places I shouldn't have been at. But I knew at that point when I had my son, I was like, I cannot keep him in a cycle. I gotta break it. And I prayed and I told God, God, I am not getting up until you speak to me.
Mhm.
I need you to speak to me.
Yeah.
And I prayed. Took me 3 hours. 3 hours I was on my knees. But he spoke.
Mhm.
And the words that he said, I'm actually incorporating into a song that I'm actually currently recording. So
Awesome.
I'm saving those words. But from that moment, I knew that my life was dedicated to him. I had to change. I had to change for myself. I had to change for my son, because if I didn't start, he was going to wind up in the same cycle.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to go back to school. And I went to Holyoke Community College, started there, just
Yeah.
small baby
Start this-
steps.
Yes.
Baby steps, and with a lot of support from my family, who helped me with my son and taking care of him while I was in school, because then I also had to work and I had to provide. And
You were the
those
single
were
mom package.
those were really, really hard years.
Yeah.
For two reasons. I wasn't really making any money, so there were times where I chose not to eat so my son could eat. He was first. I don't know how many times I watched SpongeBob SquarePants movies, because I didn't have cable. So all I had was a little TV and a little DVD player. And I know that movie off the back of my hands, because that's all my son watched was SpongeBob SquarePants. Oh my God. And Finding Nemo.
Oh, Finding Nemo. You gotta swim like Dory.
Yes.
One of my closest friends, that's one of her favorite movies, about swim,
Just keep
swim.
swimming. Just keep
Just
swimming.
keep swimming.
And, but I did it, 2 years later. And with the help of the church, with the support of the church, I went back. Started going back. I started, started a whole process. I sat down with the pastor. I had a heart to heart with my pastor, and with his wife, and we sat down and we spoke. And, I just kind of laid it all out on the table.
Yeah.
Listen, this is where I've been. This is what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is where my heart is. I'm an open book, and I got to move on. I got to move on.
Yeah.
I can't stay behind. So with their support, I was able to do my 2 years in college. So I got my associate's degree in marketing management. And then once I graduated from there, I said, I need to work. I don't have money. I don't have money. But ultimately, I wound up moving back with my parents. I was having some issues with my son's father, very unhealthy issues, unsafe issues at that time.
Yeah.
And, I spoke with my parents and I was able to move back, and they were like, you know what, just move back.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I moved back to their house, and there I decided that I would do my bachelor's degree in 1 year.
Awesome.
In 1 year.
Wow.
And I just kind of loaded up. I took 6 classes in the fall. I took a winter session. I took another 5 in the spring, and then I took 2 for summer session. And in those classes, I was able to finish my bachelor's degree in business management in a year.
So if you're just joining us, because I got to give a couple of shout outs to folks over here at the chat. I want to thank Raphael for joining us. Is that Rafi? I think that's Rafi who we grew up with.
Is it? No.
Rafi, that used to sing with us in praise and worship? I think
Yes.
Hi, Rafi. That's
Is it?
And shout out to Adaris. She says, hello, beautiful ladies. Shout out to my mom, Nellie, who's joining. And
Hey.
so if you're joining again, if this is your first time joining the Muffin Madrina moment, I'm the Muffin Madrina, and every weekend I do healthy muffins to test them out. But we also do what's called Muffin Madrina moment, which we're doing right now, and where I have an invited guest, and Amy, who is my invited guest, is sharing her journey as a mom. So let's talk about once you finished school and you got your degree, what was your next transition of life? Being a single mom, like what did you, talk to the single moms that are watching or will be watching this later on, of like how you got yourself out of that whole process and became independent and self-sufficient.
So I had a really hard time. What's the word? Like leaving again, because I was so scared. I was scared.
You want to leave, okay.
I already had these horrible experiences before, but what really kept me going was my son. Everything was my son.
Yeah.
I once I graduated, I actually applied to work. Well, let me go back. Let me go back a little bit. Before I graduated, I, my parents were starting to get a little concerned because I wasn't going anywhere. Like I would go to church, but come back, and I wasn't going anywhere.
So you became a homebody type?
Kind of. Like my Friday nights consisted of Ben and Jerry and Monk. I mean, I don't know how exciting that is, but those were my Friday nights. And my parents were like, is there nothing you need to do? And it's like, no. Mind you, this was also the time when we had to pay for internet, AOL.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I had those major papers that we had to do and have printed out. And it took what would have taken us maybe an hour today. Probably it took me till midnight, 1 a.m. the next day.
Oh, yeah,
So
that time.
at that time, my sister had gotten married, Binky.
Okay.
She had gotten married, and I was her maid of honor. And I came out with Alexi, and my mom had taken the album to her school. And she started showing, how moms get. You already know how moms get, showing everybody everything. And so my mom showed a teacher there, a Mr. Martinez.
Oh, see, I don't know this juicy story part.
Yes, she showed him the album. So he's going through the album and the pictures, and he's like, "Oh, who's this?" And she says, "That's my other daughter." And he says, "Oh, I'm gonna marry her." And my mom showed up, and she was cheesing like she had just seen the glory of God. And she comes home and she was like, "Amy, I gotta tell you, oh, Mr. Martinez, he saw the album and he saw your picture and he said this and this and this and that." And I was like, "Who is this Mr. Martinez? I don't know who he is." Okay. So she kept at it. I was like, "Listen, Mom, I don't have time for this. I don't." And that Christmas party, that how they have those school parties.
He's vouching for you. He's saying that's all true on the chat.
See, in this party, there was a teacher holiday Christmas party, whatever those festivities they do for schools. And my mom said, "Amy, you need to come with me because Mr. Martinez is gonna be the matchmaker." There. Yeah, like Mom, whoa, relax, like calm down. My mother, I love her so much. This wonderful lady of mine truly went beyond and above and beyond, purchased an outfit for me, laid it on my bed. She got me the outfit. And I told her, "Mom, you know what? I'm going to put the outfit on. I'm going to go to Bible study. Then if I feel like it, maybe I'll stop by." Went to church, went to Bible study. Asked if they were still there. Yeah, we're still here. Fine, I'll go. I
Ah,
go, I go, and it was this whole thing. So he invites me to dance, and I'm just like, I really don't want to. But anyways, I did it anyways. I went and I danced with him, and I guess I got blocked by other women. And I told mom, listen, I'm not fighting for someone I really don't care about right now. So I'm gonna go home. Let me tell you, this was on a December. I applied for work at there was a position at my mom's school, and I applied for it. It was an ELL support position, just to kind of get my feet kind of a little bit wet, get them into the system,
mhm.
because I had been working at Girls Inc. while I was getting my
Oh, the infamous
bachelor's.
Girls Inc. Everybody's been to Girls Inc. My sister, my
Yes.
mom worked
So,
there. Yes, we used to volunteer. Yes.
yep. So I was working there with my cousin while I was getting my bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
And I did the summer program, so on and so forth. And so when I went there, I kind of fell in love with working with the kids and teaching them and doing activities. And I was like, you know what? I like this. So I applied and I got a position at my mom's school. And it just so happens
The Mr.
that
Martinez.
it was on the same team as Mr. Martinez,
Yeah.
on the same team. I started in February, and by April we were engaged.
Whoa. So okay, so it's a great story. So let's talk about, how did that transition feel for you? Because you talked about your struggle, you talked about, you came from you had some unhealthy relationships.
Mhm,
How are you feeling now? You've got somebody here that, looks like has all the things, because if you got engaged with him, he checked
mhm.
off all the check boxes, right?
Right.
And so what were you feeling? How were you going through that process? Especially because, as a single mom,
Mhm,
I've heard stories. Obviously, I've never experienced it, but I've heard stories, that sometimes some moms get very guarded when a new person, the man comes in and, you have a child and things like that. Sometimes there's others that really need that relationship, and sometimes the child is kind of almost forgotten, which is unfortunate. But tell me about what was Amy going through right there through that process, feeling like.
so before any of this, the main thing, and I should have said this before, the main thing before, even before we started working together, because my mom had introduced me to him before. My parents are very protective, and they had, especially my dad. Everyone knows the infamous father of the Perez family, and he would scare everybody away. Um, but for my mom to be that excited about someone really, meant a lot to me,
Yeah,
because that spoke about him already.
yeah,
So if he had already won my mom's heart,
yeah.
then he couldn't be that bad. But of course, I have to be guarded. I can't play it easy. But the main thing that I really looked at was my son. I needed to.
How old was Alexis at the time?
So he met Alexi when Alexi had just turned 4. But we weren't doing the whole like dating thing and figuring it out, because that's the one thing I told him is, listen, I have a son and he's my life. I don't have time for games. I don't. And I needed to see how he would be. I needed to see how my son would how he would get along, not him, but how my son would get along with him.
Hmm.
I needed to see that son approval,
Yeah.
that happiness, that if my son saw him and he was happy, if my son saw him and was comfortable, if my son saw him and gave him a hug, if my son saw him and his eyes just
Latin.
opened up and he was excited, and if my son spoke about him or asked about him. Now, one thing about my son is that my son really didn't speak much. My son I had a really hard time as a single mom, because my son had a couple of things that needed to be done, like he needed his adenoids removed, his tongue was connected underneath,
Mm.
and they had to like cut that. He was having a lot of issues with speaking. He
Mhm.
wouldn't speak, he mumbled a lot.
Mhm.
um and it was really hard for me to like figure him out. Like at one point they thought he had autism and he might have been on the spectrum, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to work with that. And like it really scared me to include someone in my life that wouldn't know how to handle or work with my son. I mean, yeah, I was that mom that had him, my 3-year-old, under one arm and like 2 grocery bags on the other one, trying to go up 6 flights of stairs, because
Mm.
I was that mom that said, I'm not going to go back 2 times to try to get the second bag. I'm not going back down 6 flights. I'm going up once. I'm going to figure it out, and that was the first thing. It took a year. I took a year observing my son with him,
Mhm.
um, before I even made the decision. So we actually met Christmas of '05, like around the holiday season, Christmas season '05. No, sorry, not '05. Yeah, '05, I think. Yeah, '05, '05. I'm trying to think of my sister's wedding. And then it took a year to see that. And it wasn't until um February of '07 that we actually started dating.
Mhm.
And then by April we were engaged, because we already knew. We already knew, but it was about a year, just me kind of observing.
Yes.
And my father was also very, my father actually did not speak about him,
Yeah.
would not speak about him. My father loves him to death. That's my father loves his son-in-laws to death.
Mhm.
But because of the history that I
Yeah.
already had, my father was very careful.
Mhm.
And after I got engaged in April, um, my now husband, Lewis, sat down with my dad. Like it was the first time I had ever seen anything like that. He went to the house, he
Mhm.
spoke to both my mom and dad, spoke, what men do, that whole men, whatever thing that they
Amazing
do,
speech. Yes.
they,
I
they give
remember when
their,
Frank did that with my parents. I kind
right?
of left him hanging. I was supposed to
Right?
stick around and I actually went up the stairs. I was like, I didn't know what's what my parents gonna say, but that's it's kind of interesting you bring that up because we know that sometimes nowadays that happens, but some of that has also been lost
Yeah,
in that process. And and I think that some of these things that maybe some of the young people now may think is obsolete, it talks about character, it talks
right.
about honor, it talks about respect. Respect of family, respect of the other person. When somebody takes into account your family and understanding, because you become family. I mean, the Bible
Right.
talks about it. Once you
Yeah,
join man and woman, you become one. And
right.
so, and you leave your family to create your own family, but yet you
Right.
still have connections because you got the birthdays and the parties and the things,
Yeah.
you know how it goes.
And
And so,
Sunday dinners when you don't want to cook, you just show
yeah, you
up.
show up, mommy, tu cocinaste. But I think it's important that you get, and I thank you for sharing that because, like I said, there's just a lot of things that may happen, and sometimes when different cultures don't understand certain things of how certain cultures do other things, and I think it's important for people to learn and educate themselves in that area. And if you're just joining us, this is a Muffin Madrina moment. Please make sure to hit like. Please make sure to make a comment. And please share. And as we continue speaking here with Amy Martinez on her journey as a mom. So you are engaged.
Yes.
There's a wedding happening. So tell me, how, because you talk about your faith, right? You've talked about your faith and all your different points of time. So talk about your faith right then and there as you are going into this relationship and you're about to get married.
Yeah, so at that point, I was in praise and worship. I was very invested in the praise and worship, and even though, well, I had kind of transitioned into like the adult group. When I first started returned back to church, it was actually a youth that brought me back to church.
Oh,
And I was with her a lot and throughout the whole process and healing and all that process. So by the time this moment came along, I was already transitioned with the adults, and my son was in with the kids, and I was invested in praise and worship. And there were a lot of transitions in the church. And like the one thing that I thought about was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to leave my church like again, because that's usually the custom, right? It's the
yeah, yes. You tend to go, unless you do like me, I got married, you have to be in the same church. So we didn't go other than move out of the state to Georgia. Yeah.
So I was like doing the whole like going to my church on Sunday, and then afterwards I would go to his. So I'm going to like double services on Sundays, um I was mentally preparing myself, but it was hard. And I would lie if I said that I wasn't praying to God and saying, please let me stay here, please let me stay here, please. But at the end of the day, my faith was so strong, and was my relationship with God was so tight that it didn't matter. It didn't matter where I was, because wherever I go, I know he's there.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in my mind and with that in my heart, I'm like, you know what, God, wherever you send me, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, once wedding day came closer, we were to wed that December. I always wanted a winter wedding, so we were to wed that December. And I told my husband, okay, and Pastora came to me and she was like, listen, I know how things are. And if you got to go to his church, then we totally understand. We don't want you to feel that, and we just had that kind of conversation. But then like last minute, my husband looks at me and said, we're not going anywhere. Your ministry is here. We're going to stay where your ministry is.
Go
And he
Lewis.
stuck with me. He
Support
stayed with me. He stayed with me, and we're still there. And, throughout these years, I've been able to have the leadership of praise and worship as well. And I had it for a couple of years. And then I well, I had it for a couple of years, and I had Alina. So I had our daughter in 2009. We had a little bit of complications before and after her. I actually had 2 miscarriages. They were very difficult miscarriages that I had. And so she was like born, and her birth also was a very complicated one. There was an emergency that happened that night. I had a C-section done that morning. Blood clots built up that night, and I pretty much wound up needing a blood transfusion. I don't know if I passed out or if they put me to sleep from all the yelling. I don't know, because it was a day of blessing and a day of horrible.
So before you
yes.
go on, I just want to give a quick shout out. We have some old friends from the church joining us. Yes, God bless you. Hello, Melissa. Remember Melissa Madrina? Melissa?
Yes.
Yes, she's on here saying and giving a shout out to us. We thank you for joining us. So if you guys see me kind of turn a little bit, it's because I'm trying to look at the chat. I'm trying to see who's joining us. And Louis just said, wow, that after 12, 13 years, the truth comes out. Oh, yes. So okay, so because I know that we are pretty soon going to be wrapping up pretty soon.
Yes.
Let's move on to the part of you got married. You already said you got Alina. It's in the picture. what happened in your transition of what you're doing now? I know you're a school teacher. You became a school teacher. You didn't
I'm
say
a school teacher. Yes, I'm 13 years as a teacher. I took a
what do
1 year.
you teach? What do you teach?
I teach English and English as a second language. So I have dual licenses.
Awesome.
In I got during my time as a teacher, I took a year sabbatical to complete my master's degree. Well, not complete it, to start it. I did it in 1 year also. I was like, all I have is 1 year. So I was actually taking 5 grad classes in the fall, 1 in winter break, 5 grad classes in the spring.
Just plowed through.
Oh my goodness. I'll never do it again, but I did it. It was as a requirement. And I call my master's degree like it's my doctorate degree, because that's as much as it's going to take. And I'm still paying for it now. But anyways, that's beyond the point. So fast forward a few years, I've done middle school. Now I'm in high school. And then pandemic hit. Everything was shut down. And, I'm trying to figure things out. And my birthday came in December. And
what was it? The big what? Is it okay to say?
yes, the big 40. I'm 40 years old. And when that hit, I don't know what happened, that I'm just laying there one day and I'm like, oh my goodness, like as a little girl, I sang like crazy. Singing is my passion. It always has been. I also write music. A lot of people don't know that I do write my own music, or my own songs. Sorry, not music, songs. And I was like, wow, what have I done? I sat there and it's like, I did a lot of things. I got my degrees, I got my family, I got married, I became a mom. I did a lot of things, but like those dreams, when you're a little kid, you have those dreams. Like when I grow up, I'm going to do this, I want to do that, and I want to do this and that. And I sat back and I was thinking, I did not achieve any of it. As like those dreams as a little girl, like I never achieved it. I'm 40 years old now. And I was like, I'm not getting any younger. I have this and this and that, but I've done nothing with it. And I have a bachelor's degree in business and an associate's in marketing, and now a master's in English. Big whoop. But then I was like, what did I do with it? You know what I'm saying? Like you do all these things. And I was like, you know what? I had a moment, and my husband asked me if I was going through my midlife crisis. And I don't know, I'm not going through a midlife crisis. So that's where AMJ came from. So AMJ stands for A Mom's Journey. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. Even if it's for a little while, but I'm going to do it. And I want to know that I did it. Yeah. So he actually called a friend of his, sorry, I blanked out for a second because I was hearing something. And so friends of ours, now my friends, Lakia and Brandon Bayman, they have their own recording studio. And so I've been able to go into the studio, and I actually started recording one of my songs, and the second one is in the works. And I have a third one that is written that we're also going to start. So that's all in the works.
Wait a minute. You said Bayman. Is that my madrina Sandra Bayman related to them?
I don't know.
No?
Maybe we have to find out. I don't know, but they're from Springfield. They're from here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So maybe they are.
Maybe. I don't know. We might have to find Sandy. If you're there, let us know. Let us know. I'm going to have to ask them now. But yeah, so I've been going into the studio with them. They are super amazing. They have their own ministry in motion here in Springfield. And I've been working alongside with them, a little bit of gospel, a little bit of Latino, a little bit of mix of everything. And, just having that support. And then on top of that, I started my own blog, and it's just kind of it's meant to encourage moms, and I think it's now AMJ has become more than just a mom's journey.
Mhm.
It's more for women, and thinking about women who are working um their hearts out, working their hours, their days, and
Yeah.
moms and single moms, and just we seem to always focus our attention to everybody else, and I think that's just a maternal thing,
Mhm.
that we always think of everybody else. Even if we go shopping, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go buy myself a shirt, and then you might buy yourself something, but you
Yeah,
bought
that's right.
either your kids or your husband 3 4 5 pieces, so it's like you kind of, and I don't like the word neglect. I don't like the word neglect,
Yeah.
but sometimes it we kind of put everybody else in the forefront of everything,
Yeah.
and we leave ourselves in the background.
Mhm.
And I found that when I really wanted something at the stores, the first thing I looked at was the ticket and on the thing, and I'm like, I'm not buying this. So AMJ was created for women to be able to get those things that, make you feel good, make you look good, make you just
Mhm.
build up who you are. You already know who you are. Now it's dressing it up to that sense. So everything that AMJ stands for is for any and every woman
Mhm.
to um have their journey reflected on the
Awesome.
things that they choose to have,
Yes.
and just project that in themselves.
Yeah.
So
So you have, just to recap really quick, so you have a blog
yes,
where people can go to. It's called A Mom's Journey. It's AMJ Unfulfilled, right?
no, it's uns of mom's life.
Oh, on. Okay.
The uns, like the un meaning not, the
Oh,
knots
got you.
of mom's life, meaning the things we haven't yet fulfilled. That's where AMJ comes from. And I'm trying to fix it because I know I just kind of started everything. But
So
that's
you
what
can
it's,
visit her blog to read,
yes.
because she puts on different inspirational type
Mhm.
writings that she puts on there. But then on top of that, she also has her store, and
Mhm.
where you can shop. I mean, there is a little bit of everything
Yep.
in
Yep.
that. And it's true what she says, as far as prices, sizing, all these other things to make it available to you. Now, you had mentioned that you had a ta-da story to mention, because I know that some of your followers are probably
Yes.
waiting for you to tell them why we kept them waiting.
So, as you guys know, with AMJ, we've done the marketplace, we've even done artwork, we're doing shirts, we're doing jewelry, we're doing sunglasses, everything. But the next thing coming in, my next shipment that I have coming in, is AMJ is introducing its own line of handbags. So I have handbags that have been customized and created with the AMJ logo. They will be the first ones for
Awesome.
AMJ.
That is
So
so neat.
AMJ will have its own line of exclusive handbags that they will be up for purchase as soon as they arrive here.
Awesome. That is so great.
Yes,
So, you know
yes.
what? You never know. It could become the next what? Coach or Michael Kors. But so we gotta make sure that you have that first AMJ back. So we're getting close to finishing off, right? Because the live is for an hour, and we want to thank everybody that has joined us and has come along with us. So for the last 1 or 2 minutes that we have, Amy, in a wrap up, what would you tell somebody who may have been going through this journey? What advice would you give to someone?
Listen, our journey is going to be full of ups and downs. That is part of living. Living is not always going to be the just the always being on top of everything and feeling that everything is situated. Part of growing and part of developing is making mistakes, learning from them, making a plan to fix it, not do it again, and move on.
Yep.
When you make a mistake, don't stick to that mistake. Everybody makes a mistake. Nobody is perfect.
Mhm.
And God made you uniquely you. God made you the way you are because he needs you to be the way you are for his purpose.
Mhm.
So sometimes characters might be a little bit strong or things. And that's what I thought. It was like, oh my goodness, God uses whoever he wants, when he wants, how he wants. So if you feel desperate, if you feel tied in a corner, if you feel like there's no way out, there's always a way out. There's always a way out. There's always people to help. And don't be like me. If you need help, ask for it.
Yes, definitely.
There's always people there that are always willing to help. You just have to know where to look and who to trust in that, because that's another factor. But
Yes.
nothing is impossible. Absolutely nothing. Don't let things bother you, because the longer you let it sit in your heart, the longer it's going to hold you back. Don't look back. Keep going forward.
That is true. And thank you. Thank you. You know, it is true what Amy just shared with her, with us. I want to thank her, and thank you for doing this tonight with us and sharing your story. You know, she said a lot of things. And if you have joined us for mostly all the Muffin Madrina moments, there's been like almost this thread that's been following throughout. And, you know, I always think about, you know, Frank always asks me, hey, what you're planning to do this time around. And at the end of the day, I feel that God is in control of everything, that there's not a coincidence of some of the folks that I've invited and those that I have on my list to invite that are be joining us. And there's a connection and a process, because what you said, you know, you went through your situation, you went through your path, you have excelled, and it doesn't stop there. Just because we are in a season of blessings and greatness doesn't mean that nothing else may pass through. But what is important is what you said, how we deal with it. We don't stay with it, we move on and put our trust in God. And if you need help, and we said this the last month in Medina when I had a friend who was a therapist, please, if you need help, go get help, please. Either somebody professional or a pastor or a friend, somebody that you can trust with and be able to speak out about what you're going through, because it's important to not do life alone. So thank you for being this evening. Thank you, Amy. Make sure to check out her
You're
site. I will be
welcome.
posting on our page a link to her site as well. And we will be able to you can be able to shop, you can be able to read her things. And don't forget that this Saturday at 8:30 in the morning, we are going to be doing what? Lemon blueberry healthy muffins. Okay. So make sure to join us. Her husband tends to join us almost all the time, or like check us up later on. He actually did the last ones and his came out better than mine. It looked better. But
They look so good.
definitely
Yeah.
join us and have a great evening. It's been a pleasure being with you tonight, and make sure to join us again. And bye to everybody. Bye. Bye, Amy. Bye.
Bye.